Alright, so now we're on my desk and here we have the Sony a6000, and in case you didn't know, the Sony a6000 is also a mirrorless camera. So mirrorless cameras, they don't have a mirror here, and yeah, this is a 24.3 megapixel sensor, and the way you can put back on your lens is pretty simple. You just have to put this white button and this white button, and you just have to connect these two and just twist, and it's pretty simple. Little life hack on the side. So in this video I'm going to show you the different buttons, and if you have any questions you can leave them in the comments down below. I'm happy to help you, and yeah, I would say we start with the most simplest button, and this is the on and off button. So here you have your power switch, and if you turn it to the right, the camera is off, and if you turn it to the left, the camera is on again. And here you also have your photo button. So for example, if you do a picture, so here we have this little thing here, and if you focus, let's do it again. So if we focus the center, here you see, and if you take a picture, if you press on it, it takes a picture. What you can also do is press it halfway and it just focuses the picture. And if it becomes green here, the picture is in focus. So here you go. And if you press now, it takes the picture. And this is very helpful. If you're unsure, you can always press it halfway and see, is my picture in focus? So now it's in focus. So this is a very simple way to explain this button. And here you have your mode dial. Or you can also say your different modes. For example, here we have manual mode, we have shutter priority, we have aperture priority, we have program mode, we have, for example, here intelligent mode, and we have, for example, panorama mode, we have recording mode. There's so many different out there, and personally, for beginner photographers, if you're out there and you're just watching this video right now and you have never photographed before, I always recommend intelligent mode because the camera does the pictures for you. However, if you want to get better and better, I always recommend to go to manual mode, because you as a photographer, you want to improve, and the best way is when you always set the settings yourself. And to explain simply the modes, manual mode is basically where you decide how to do the pictures. Shutter priority is where you can, for example, twist this shutter speed wheel and your shutter speed goes high and low. And then you also have aperture priority, which is here, and here you can change the aperture wheel. And now your aperture goes raises and lowers. So now we have, for example, f1.4, and we can also change it by twisting this wheel to 2.8. This is the way you change your aperture. And you also have program mode, and this is basically where the camera decides what shutter speed and aperture the camera should use. And you can, for example, change your ISO, and the way you can, for example, raise your ISO is here. So you can say, oh, I want my image much brighter, so now it goes way brighter. You can also do, for example, auto ISO. But I like to always choose the ISO myself, because if you go for an ISO which is over 1000, I experienced that the camera is kind of like too grainy in its images. So I always leave it as, for example, ISO 400. The best thing what can happen is if you're around 200 or 400, but it also depends on your photoshoot location. So I always try to keep to be between 200 and 400, but sometimes you have no choices, so it's good to raise the ISO. It's better to raise the ISO than to don't use it at all. So a little tip for me, and you can view your images by pressing on this play button here. So here we have our image. This is pretty handy if you want to see your images again. What you can also do is, for example, twist this wheel and you can look at your other images. So if you have an image you didn't see at front, you can just twist it. You can also press these buttons. You can also hold them, so it goes quickly. What you can also do is you can press on display. On display you can see, for example, what f-stop you use, what ISO, and what shutter speed. And if you press again, you can also see here, oh, why is it like doing this black thing? And it has to do because this area is overexposed. So every time it blinks black, it shows that the image in the histogram, which you can see here, is overexposed. So what your goal is always that your image is well exposed or good exposed. So it's always good if your image is around here. So little tip. But this is not too bad because, I mean, it's a white table, so don't worry about it too much. But if you, for example, if we do a picture, and let's make sure it's very overexposed. Let's do a picture again. Okay, let's press on the play button. So now even more areas are overexposed. So always make sure you have the correct exposure, because in post-production, it's really hard to get down the highlights because just dead pixels basically. So always be careful. And what you can also do is, so now we're here on our LCD display, you can also, for example, take it out. So if you want to use your flip up, you can do that. You can also put it back in. Always be careful if you take this out because it can break very easily. So one little advice from me. What you can also do is press on display, and for example, you can change your different styles from your LCD display. So now here you have like all your auto white balance, your standard creative profile, your settings here, AFC, high speed, and you can also change it, for example, just to get rid of it. You can also go into for viewfinder mode. So I don't personally like to use the viewfinder, but you can, for example, have these kind of settings here where you can change your shutter speed, and you have to look through the viewfinder. But I personally don't use the viewfinder. I like to shoot with the LCD screen. It's just my preference, but you can also use this. The good thing about this menu is that you can also see exactly what kind of settings you use. For example, you use drive mode high, you use AFC, center focus, and face detection. This can be very, very helpful if you want to have a good overview. I personally like to use always this kind of view because here you see all your settings, and I really like it because you know exactly what you're shooting with. So this is my favorite page. And what you can also do is, for example, press on FN. FN is where you can change your drive mode, your flash mode, AFC. You can change it, for example, to AFS. I've done a video about these settings before. You can definitely check these out. But to make it simple, this is your focus mode. So you can change it from AFC, so the camera is moving, or you can change it to AFS, where you have to stand still and then it takes a picture. What you can do, for example, to change your focus mode is you can go to C1. So C1 and C2 are your custom buttons. So you can go, for example, on C1, press on it, and here you have your different focus modes. So if you are on a photo shoot, you just did a photo and you said, oh, okay, now I want to go to AFS, you can just change it immediately. But personally, I always leave it as AFC because it really follows also your object. And this is what I always do. And you can also press on C2, for example. C2 is also your button if you want to delete a picture. I can show you in a second. But here you have your focus area. For example, white, zone, center, flexible spot. So if you want to change this pretty quickly, you can change it. And you can also customize your custom buttons, but I always leave it like this, like focus area for C2, and for C1 we have the focus modes. And what you can also do with this little bin button, you can go into your menu, and here you have your image, and you can delete it by pressing on C2. And then you just have to, for example, delete this picture. Goes pretty quickly. And we also have here your drive mode. For example, you have single shooting, you have continuous shooting, and all of the others. So to make it simple, here you can decide how many pictures you take by pressing the button. So you can take a lot, or you can also, for example, do just one picture. So this is good because you can press here on this button and you can go straight away to your drive mode. And this is basically it. If I've forgotten something, I will let you know. Last but not least, you have here your HDMI and your multi-cable. So if you want to charge up your camera with your cable, you can definitely do that. You also have down here your battery. So I can show you, it's always good to switch off your camera first. And here you have your battery, for example, and here you have your SD cards. So battery and SD cards, and you can just put this back in. You have your record button here, so you can also record by turning on the camera. And if you press on this button, you can also, so now we have to change it to MP4, for example, because I have a 16GB memory card in here. For XAVC-S, you need at least 64, so now we could record. And it's pretty simple, so a pretty easy record button here. So that was really it. And yeah, if you have any other questions, you can definitely message me. And it was a lot of fun doing this tutorial. I really like doing tutorials where I also explain you things, because I'm doing a lot of photo shoots and it's also nice to talk about cameras in general. So I really enjoyed it. And if you also enjoyed it, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Instagram down here. All my socials are down below. And guys, take care of yourself and see you next time. Bye.